Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the League Two podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Boone from the Railway Men podcast. Tom, thanks for joining me. A bit of a streaky start to the season from Crewe, Alexandra, hasn't it?
Yeah, it started really, really well, as you'll know, because I was on this podcast talking about how good we'd started, and then it sort of seemed like we'd hit that rut again, and it sort of seemed like we were seeing the team we saw at the back end of last season, but we turned it round with at least one win against Notts County on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're now joined by my co-host, Mr. Ed Walker, an expert on all things fourth tier. Ed, I'm just wondering
what 5:30 start.
What have you made of Crewe
Alexandra's?
Sorry about that. What have you made of Crewe Alexandra's start to the season?
Mixed. Can I summarise with that? I feel like we had an incredibly positive beginning to it, feeling quite good about how things were starting. A little patch away, and maybe now a bit of confidence back in. I'm trying to record this off the top of my head here. Suddenly trying to realise.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I think what really impressed me was how early on in the season, how aggressive you were against the ball, and how you were able to kind of dominate games. It felt a little bit more like the Notts County game. It was really spirited defending from what I could see, but maybe, in terms of balances, chances, maybe fortune favoured you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of them where the first half we scored from our only shot, and actually I thought we started the first 20 quite well, and then we just faded out of the game and were really under the cosh. So Notts County's goal was a bit inevitable. But yeah, we dug deep. We were doing what we've done quite well under Lee Bell, in the sense that we defended really well. We looked quite solid, and we found a way to get 3 points, which is sort of something he specialises in, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just wondering, Josh March, a lot of emotion for him after netting the penalty against Notts County, but a really positive start to the season from his point of view.
Yeah, he's had a good start to the season, probably been one of the stars of the side. And actually, that penalty goal was quite big for him, because obviously he'd missed one of the two that we missed against Barnet in that sort of hectic, unscriptable style game. So he really needed to bury it, and I was really happy. He had his moment. He had his moment in front of the home fans where he's scored late on to get us 3 points. So yeah, delighted for him, and someone who's just been so key to what we're doing this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to see Mickey Demetrio get among the goals as well. Possibly back to his 23-24 kind of form.
Well, we can hope. Yeah, I think teams have wised up to him, and actually his goal scoring threat has just been less and less. So it was really nice to see him get a goal, and it was vintage, just free from his man. The ball's in a bit of a danger area, and if there's a man you want at the back post to head it in, it's him, and he did exactly that. But he was fantastic on Saturday, and he needed to be, because he was coming under a little bit of scrutiny after those sort of 5 games where we had been poor. And people were calling on him as a leader of that team to really step up, and fair play to him, he did.
Yeah, certainly did. Also want to bring out Tom Booth, because he made a very good save in the first half. Is he showing signs of claiming that number 1 jersey?
Yeah, we're sticking by him. There was certainly a period where it felt like you could make the argument to drop him for Waller, and we've stuck by him as a club. Lee Bell's stuck by him, and it's bearing its fruits, because he kept us in that game, to be quite frank. He made a few big saves. He made big saves at Colchester away. He was quite solid at Barrow. Granted, we lost, but was one of the reasons it wasn't a heavier scoreline. So, yeah, it really looks like we are backing him this season, because I think in past seasons we would have possibly given the lone keeper a go by this stage if Booth had been putting in the performances he has been. But we're sticking by him, and I think he's improving because of it, which is nice to see for one of our own.
So where are you feeling on things? Because Obviously, the win against Notts County was great. There were a couple of performances before then, like I think Barrow away was one of them, and maybe another one where you were miles off the levels that you were hoping for, and fans were getting a little bit restless. Has the victory over Notts County soothed things slightly?
Yeah, I mean that's the nature of football, isn't it? I always think that the best thing about these sort of podcasts and fan channels is that they get to be reactionary. Football's a reactionary sport, and as a fan, you've got to take the highs and the lows, and you've got to overreact to everything. I think. Yeah, I was definitely after that Barrow game. If we had done this podcast a week ago, it would have been a very different version of me. I would have been saying I felt a bit apathetic. I felt a bit lost. It feels like we're in a rut again. It feels like we're going to resort back to a back five, negative football. And yet we've won with a late goal and it all feels all right. But that's football personified, in my opinion. Yeah, we definitely, there's definitely some concerns and I hope that we can put them right. But that win is definitely big for confidence and it's definitely big for the fan base in terms of getting them back on side when it could have teetered if we had a lost.
But yeah, I think one thing that certainly from the outside, I'm quite mindful, Tom, that with Crewe Alexandra, you're definitely looking at a bottom 8 budget in League Two. There's hardly any external investment at the club. And so to do what Lee Bell has done, I mean, even last season, there was the disappointment of dropping out of the playoffs in the manner that he did. But even to finish mid-table, although that's a disappointment from where you were, it's probably better than where Crewe Alexandra rank in budgetary terms. And it's difficult for fans to think like that. But I think Lee Bell's done a good job when you look at what he's working with.
I think he's definitely done a good job, and I think the positions definitely at the back end of last season weren't the issue. I think the reason people were debating Lee Bell, it was the style of football and it was the lack of youth players playing under him / attacking players developing under him. It was never, with Crewe Alexandra Football Club, I don't think it'll ever be a results-based thing with fans. It is always, are we playing our kids? Are we playing an attractive brand of football? And actually, at the start of this season, we really were under Bell because we were that intense, we were that forward-thinking side. And that's what fans want to see. And if he can unlock that out of this team, regardless of where we finish, I think fans would be happier this season. But I think he somewhat doesn't benefit from the fact that 2023-24 season was so good because then the bar's set as, well, Lee Bell can get us in the playoffs. Let's do one better. Let's get promoted at Wembley or let's go up automatically. And when the board maintain and they keep saying to us that we need to be in League One, we want to be in League One, it feels like the goal is League One. So it is, like you say, as a fan, when you go into watch a football club and, the gaffer, the team, the board are all saying League One's the goal, I think it's counterproductive to then not hold them to that standard, if that makes sense. I agree completely with your point about the budgets, but if we're setting out that the goal is League One and we're using our money to try and get to League One, because that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, then I think that's got to be the expectation at some point under Bell, whether it's this season, whether it's next season, whenever. His job is to get this club promoted at the end of the day.
Yeah, certainly is. What have you made of, you mentioned youngsters kind of coming into the team, and I suppose the positive sign would be that Holacek, who's already fairly established now, matches Holacek because he's been around the squad for about 3 or 4 seasons. But I would say Galamagius starting is a positive in terms of getting those homegrown prospects into the 11.
Yeah, I mean, the goal for me for Agius, Holacek, and if Taberner was fit this season, unfortunately he won't be, the goal with those 3 was to get more goal involvements, because Holacek's a brilliant technical footballer and he's a forward-thinking footballer. He offers creativity. But his final third decision-making, I think, is potentially a little bit subpar. It's something that definitely can be improved, and I think will improve. So I'm not gonna judge him too harshly for that. But yeah, it's nice to see the likes of those 2, Owen Lunt, Charlie Finney quietly reached 50 appearances for the club on Saturday. Tom Booth's obviously starting quite consistently now. So it is nice to see our own, because it always is at Crewe. It's always going to be the way. It's always going to be what fans want. We could have great investment into the football club. We'd still want to see our youth. We'd still want to see our academy lads. So it's lovely to see. But next steps for me, for Holacek, for Agius, are goal involvements and more of them. And to be fair, Agius has had a few at the start of this season.
Yeah, so fingers crossed with that, because it would be nice to see players like that come on. I wanted to ask you about Lewis Billington, because on the highlights of the Notts County game, it did look like there were one or two occasions where he seemed a little bit susceptible. I'm wondering whether you feel Lewis Billington is his best position is right back, and how you feel he's been getting on this season.
I think his best position is definitely at right back. I don't even think that's a debate within the club anymore, to be fair. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because he would have been up against Jody Jones on Saturday, which is going to be tough for any League Two fullback. Yeah, Billington's had a very solid start to the season, I'd say. He's been a consistent 6, 7 out of 10 in every game. Even the ones we've been poor in, he's probably still been at that 5 or 6 level. And I think that's what he offers. He's just a bit of a Mr. Consistent. He doesn't really do anything that wows you as a fan, but he does enough where he's never going to come under the firing line, because he's just quite solid at this level. And like I said, he's improving every week going forward. I'd like to see him add a bit more of that sort of marauding fullback aspect, a bit more of an overlap from him. But what he offers us is solidity at the back, and he is someone that I've seen progress completely under Lee Bell, and I've seen him become a better footballer because of Lee Bell. So yeah, I like Lewis Billington a lot.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can bring that solidity against wide players other than Jody Jones, because I can understand that that's obviously going to make it difficult. I suppose the other factor is you've got Tommy O'Reilly on the other side, who's a very forward-thinking player. Do you think that they've got to do a bit of work in terms of building up that relationship on the right-hand side?
I quite like their relationship, to be fair. I think they get along really well as footballers. I've compared it before to you. It's not exactly the same, but that sort of Dan Powell, Perry NG-esque partnership. I think Billow does that. He joins him in attack really well, but you've got such a talented technical footballer in Tommy O'Reilly that you almost let the winger do the talking. You know what I mean? You don't need Lewis Billington to be the attacking one of that partnership. You need him behind, offer an option, and make sure you're there to support him. / if he loses the ball, you're there to win the ball back and get back and defend. But I think it's one of them. I think they've formed quite a nice partnership. And Tommy O'Reilly, he's been a bit all or nothing so far this season. He's either really, really on it, or he's just anonymous in games. But I suppose that's what you get with a lone player from a Premier League side. He looks magic when he's on it, though, and I think he has a real future in football.
Yeah, what I would sort of possibly say is maybe defensively, does Tommy O'Reilly need to give his right back a bit of help from time to time? Does he need to be there? Maybe when he's not on it from that technical attacking point of view, is he still there to offer that support? Because that could dictate a lot for him in his career.
Yeah, very potentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in terms of central midfield, you've got Max Sanders there, who's one of my favourite players, and you've got Connor Thomas, who's it feels like he's the one who arguably one of the most important players in this Crewe team, because you've not got many other players who are like Connor Thomas in the squad, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a huge fan of Connor Thomas since the day he's joined us, and I think the issue with him, and actually wider speaking, that whole midfield, is that it's very injury prone. Jack Powell, granted, Jack Powell's was a very long-term injury, so less so, but we've had periods without Powell and Thomas in that team, and all of a sudden you have less options in midfield, because obviously, naturally, you do when you're talking about the two who are sitting deeper anyway. I love Connor Thomas. I think he's one of the most key players for us. I think when he plays well, the team play well. And I think his tactical awareness and his sort of footballing brain is one of the best I've ever seen for a Crewe player. I like our midfield, but it's a very what-if midfield, because you rely on the fitness of your key individuals, and you rely on Owen Lunt, Max Sanders having good games. When that midfield are off it, the whole team's off it, and we end up not playing through them. So it's one of them. It's a very all or nothing midfield for me, that, but I do like it when it works.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of Charlie he's playing at left back. Do you think Charlie Finney is of the level that you need in that position? Quality wise.
I think as a backup to Reece Hutchinson, yeah, he's perfectly fine, and I think he can also cover that. He can play midfield when needed, and that's the point of our academy for me. On Charlie Finney's wage, we wouldn't be able to get anyone better. That's my view, because he's on low wages, because he's an academy grad, and he can just offer us a squad option. That's the gift of the academy. We would pay similar caliber players probably a few £100 more if we didn't have our academy, and that's the good thing, is that you can have squad options and you can have first teamers through the academy. And I think Charlie Finney right now is just an example of that sort of squad versatility player that we get on the cheap through investing so heavily into our own and backing ourselves in developing players. I've always rated Charlie Finney, to be honest, and he's just never seemed to deliver. Injuries have come at the wrong time for him, but credit to him. I thought he was really solid on Saturday. I thought he took his chance in the absence of Hutchinson through suspension, and if he plays like that, he might have a place in the team, and fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the bench that you've got, one thing I'm curious about is whether Emre Tezgel is going to come into the equation here. Obviously, Josh March has had a brilliant start to the season, and that puts him front and centre, quite literally. Tezgel, I do see though as a real exciting prospect and someone who's going to show his uses over the course of the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, he comes with the nickname Lionel Tezzy, and I think that just sums up that he's quite a good footballer. He's one that he came in with such rave reviews, and he's someone I know about through youth level, who I just thought was going to be brilliant for us. And actually, he's not quite gelled yet. He's not quite got the opportunities. He's scored in the cups when he's got to go, but he's not delivered in the league. It's a weird one, because I really rate him as a footballer, but I'm not quite sure what he's offered us just yet. We haven't given him enough time in games when it possibly was calling out for him. But then when he started in the league, he's not looked fantastic, and it's forced Josh March out wide. Me personally, I'd like to see Tez and March as a front two at some point, because I think the workhorse aspect of March and then that sort of clinical, almost technical ability of Tezgel could be a nice partnership. But whether we see it or not, we'll see. I do think he'll get minutes, and I do think he'll get a go at some point. And once he starts firing, fingers crossed, it then just means he keeps going and going.
Yeah, I'm excited about Tezgel because I'm a little bit like Tommy O'Reilly. I am a big believer that once someone's had some initial experience of senior football, they're going to get better as a result of that, especially if they come with a really high, good youth reputation. So I'm really hopeful with Tezgel. And Jay Mingy's another one, Tom, because I think Danny Cowley described him as an anaerobic beast when he was at Portsmouth. Obviously worked with him at Colchester as well. Very energetic box-to-box midfielder initially, and then more recently in his career he's been converted into a right-sided defender. But I imagine he's someone that, as a Crewe fan, you've not seen an awful lot of just yet.
No, to be honest, he's only made very, very brief cameos off of the bench in the league, at least, anyway. And he's a player, like you said, he was one that when we signed him, I almost questioned it in the sense that he should be further along than us in his career. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to us. I just mean that he's a name that I was familiar with, that I really rated at one time. And for whatever reason, it's not quite worked out. And we're the club that are now giving him a chance to push on and prove that he's good at this level and beyond. But like you said, I don't quite know what his best position is. I don't quite know whether we've brought him in as a backup right back, or whether we've brought him in as a hybrid player who can play on that almost right wing, centre mid, right back if needed. I don't know if he's that sort of player. I'm excited to find out, because, I like our depth this season. I think that's what we've lacked under Bell in the last 2 seasons. And that's another reason I think fans are quite reluctant to give Bell excuses this season, because I look at our team and I actually think it's really good starting 11, and I think the bench is good as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it now, Tom. You've got if I look at it, you've got James Connolly, who started for you before. You've got Jack Lancaster, who was very good before his injury last season. You've got Jay Mingy, who's played top-end League One with Portsmouth. You've got Louis Malt, who before injuries has had a quieter period in his career more recently, but was starting in the Championship of Preston a few years ago. You've got Dion Rankine, who was very highly rated at Chelsea as a sort of versatile wide player, and Tezgel, who we've spoken about. So these are all players who are on the bench against Notts County. So that does give Lee Bell the options to change things up. And the other point that I would make, I agree with you about the lack of depth in previous seasons, but I also think it's been partly because you've had lots of injuries, and it does seem to be, it's been a bit of a curse at Crewe Alexandra the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the injury crisis is, whether there's a pattern to them, believe me, the sports scientists are trying to figure it out at our club, why it's been happening. And it might just be down to bad luck. And hopefully we can have a season without bad luck where we can just try and get along our business quietly, try and prove that we are a good side at this level and that Lee Bell knows how to get this football club at the very top end of this division. But yeah, the depth/injury argument, I'm sure if you put 13 or 15 injuries into this season's team like we had last season, I'm sure the depth wouldn't actually be as deep as I'm thinking. But yeah, it's nice to have good backup options because, like you say, you're reading off that bench and there's a good calibre of player there. It isn't just a few kids who've never made appearances.
Yeah, I think you've got to give a lot of credit to the head of recruitment who became
Josh Kennard.
Josh Kennard, thank you. The name was on the tip of my tongue, Tom. Yeah, I think you've got to give a lot of credit to him. And I do think the value of a good director of football, you can't put a price on it because, if it's good recruitment, that can really maximise the budget. And I think we've seen that from Crewe over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's one of our most valuable assets.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. What have you made of opposition in League Two so far this season, and anyone that's impressed you in terms of opponents?
Swindon were brilliant. I wasn't at the game. I only caught the first half on Sky because I was away that week. But they just looked so clinical. They looked so professional. They looked like an Ian Holloway team at their best. And there were definitely question marks about whether Holloway's still got it in 2025. And I think he does, because I think that Swindon side looked excellent against us. I thought Notts County were quite good at the weekend, to be fair as well to them. If they'd have been a bit more clinical, they would have been out of sight in that first half, to be honest. I'm trying to recall anyone else who I've thought has been quite...
Yeah, I thought Crawley was quite poor at Gresty Road.
Yeah, I think the first 4 teams we played were either poor or we made them look poor through how good we were, so they're hard to judge. Swindon are the big standouts for me, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of Gillingham? Because I know they beat you 1-0 back in August.
Yeah, Gillingham, again, it was a game I wasn't at, but from the highlight reel, it was a quite even game where if we take our chances, we could have been out of sight. But I do rate Gareth Ainsworth. I think he just knows how to get the best of clubs at this level, and I think his tactics are so... They play in the opposition half. They don't need the ball. They can find a way to win games of football. And I hope Elliot Nevitt's good for them this season, because I think he suits that sort of role of that man who runs the channels, does all the workhorse aspect. And I know Gillingham fans are saying that, he's doing everything so well, but he's not finding the goals. And it sounds like such a familiar story before he got firing for us. So I'm hoping they fall in love with Elliot Nevitt this season like we did.
Yeah, fingers crossed from their point of view. It's interesting. So you've lost. The Barnet game I thought was odd because I felt like Barnet maybe got a little bit lucky in that one. I think it obviously needed 2 penalty saves within 5 minutes from Ciaran Slicker, and I think on another day, either one of those penalties or one of the chances you had in the first half of that game, you'd have probably put away.
Yeah, I found it really hard to judge us after that game, because I thought we'd done enough to win the game of football. And truth be told, I thought there were 2 better penalty shouts than the 2 we actually got. So it was one of them where, granted, if we had been given 4 penalties, I wouldn't have backed us to score any of them on that day. But it was a weird game to judge. I thought they were really professional away from home. It's how you get points on the road at this level. And Dean Brennan is one that is known as a bit of a pragmatic manager. But they didn't overly impress me, because I just saw them as another newly promoted dark arts sort of style club. Granted, I don't think they are that. I just think it's how they were trying to get 3 points, and it was what the game needed to frustrate us, because we were playing well in the first half. We found our goal, and then we just a bit of sloppy defending, and yeah, it was a really weird game to judge, and one that left me very annoyed as a football fan.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what's possible for Crewe this season then, Tom, what do you think? I mean, at the moment, you're not necessarily in the best of form, but you do have 16 points from your first 10 games, which would obviously put you in and around it if you sustained that return.
Yeah, it's the beauty of League Two, isn't it? Because you can be having a bit of an internal meltdown, and you look at the league table, and it's like, God, we're actually up there. It's weird, but yeah, I said before the season, I don't know what the ceiling was for us. I could see us anywhere between the automatics and battling for relegation. I said that before the season, and I don't maintain it now because I think we'll be way clear of relegation. But I genuinely don't know what to expect from this season, Gab, and I think that's the beauty. It's already been an emotional roller coaster, and I think are we 9-10 games in? So it's one of them where, let's just have what comes to us. Let's enjoy this season. Let's see what happens, because it could be anything. It could be that we go 3 without a win now, or it could be that that's a catalyst for a bit of success and we go 4 or 5 on the spin again. So, yeah, bring on Harrogate on Monday and bring on the season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to ask about, before I bring in my next guest, I think coming up in about 5 minutes' time, wanted to ask about the ownership side of things, with Charles Grant is still owner of Crewe. Do you see that staying the case for the foreseeable?
A really hard one to answer, because the board have made it clear they want investment, but they've not quite made it clear to fans exactly what sort of investment they want. We don't know whether it'll be a takeover. We don't know whether it'll be money pumped into the club with Grant still involved. We really don't know, and it's sort of gone all quiet on the investment front, to be fair, since they put out the statement asking for investment or saying that they're open to it. Grant said on the Railwaymen podcast that he'd be open to anything, and if the right offer comes, the right offer comes. But it's important to me, and I think I'll speak on behalf of every Crewe fan, we can't sacrifice our principles. We can't move away from the youth academy. We can't move away from what makes Crewe Alexandra, because that would put me off. It'd put other fans off. Yeah. So they've got to very carefully select the investment. And I think ideally it'd be someone local who comes into a lot of money. It'd be someone who gets the football club, someone who already knows a bit about what we are, who we are, what we do. But yeah, I really don't know. And I don't know whether it'll change in the foreseeable. I don't know whether it'll be waiting on it 3 or 4 years down the line. But I do think we're in safe hands under Charles Grant. I think his involvement in the EFL proves that he's someone that's well respected, at least in the sort of footballing community. So yeah, it's a really hard one to answer. But as far as I'm concerned, whilst we're under him, I have full confidence in him and the board to run us healthily, to run us sustainably. And hopefully, like you say, we can get a bit of investment in the club. But I don't know what that would look like, to be completely honest with you, Gab.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think I definitely think that you want the club, you want a sustainable club, don't you? That runs itself, and you might have a bit of external investment because you might need that in the modern football climate. But definitely someone that sort of is going to uphold the values of the club. But for right now, I think Charles Grant is a safe pair of hands, isn't he? All right. Well, Tom, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you at Grassy Road later in the season.
Brilliant. Cheers, Gab.
Cheers. Top man, Tom.